Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. This podcast is focused on doing one thing. We want to be the place where we explore people, where we explore principles, and we explore patterns that allow great contagious cultures to thrive. And today's conversation is with my good friend, somebody that is literally killing it in the industry, somebody that is the embodiment of leadership, somebody that's integrity, character, and competence are in full alignment with what our leaders need to be. And this conversation is with Coretta Dixon. She is the Director of Organizational Effectiveness and Change Leadership. She's led transformation across education, across healthcare, across finance, and aviation, helping thousands of not just leaders, but also employees turn strategy into sustainable action. Coretta, how you doing?
Well, after that introduction, I'm doing awesome.
Look, I am so excited for this conversation. I think that there's some people that you meet and you're like, wow, I really am always intrigued every conversation that we have. I always have my notebook ready every conversation that we have. And I'm so excited for our audience to be able to learn from you, be able to hear some of your wisdom, and be able to, for you to answer some of the questions that they may have. But before we get started, can you introduce who you are without using any titles and just talk to people about what is the story that got you to the place that you are today?
Awesome sauce. Well, I love telling this. So I'm Coretta Dixon. I help organizations prepare people for AI by transforming behaviors and mindsets. So I've spent about 15 years in consulting, and all of that time, majority of that time, I have worked in IT. Don't ask me how, but I did. And I have done technology adoption, as he said, across a lot of different industries, even life science. I don't even know how I got in there. But the good thing about that is that I don't always know the technology when I'm in an organization trying to make the flip, but I know the importance of what it takes to make the transformation successful. So I just want to share what I've learned over the years because it has helped me to help organizations, large and small, increase their adoption numbers and sustain that through guidance and suggestions that I've learned over the years.
How would you define transformation? I think that a lot of organizations will define it differently, but in education, we define transformation very simply. Being able to take a student from point A and be able to get them to point B where they're able to have the tools, the methods, the skills to perform as globally competitive leaders in a nutshell. But everybody's business throws around this word transformation, 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 but people still be the same organizationally. How would you define transformation, and what would be your advice to leaders that are really trying to create transformative experience amongst teams as well as with their clients?
Good question. You got better questions than me, and I'm the question queen. So what I've learned is transformation is really just about, it's a mindset shift. They can talk about the technology, they can talk about the changes in organizations, but really it really is getting your end users and your stakeholders to think differently and adopt whatever it is that you want them to adopt. Over time, I spent a lot of time in change management, and all those frameworks say the same thing. They are get ready, take action, and let's get it moving. And the truth of it all is that it's all the same. But the reason I decided to shift my thoughts and to shift and go into my own consulting firm is that it gave me more flexibility based on what I learned. So when it comes to transformations, I really think there's three reasons. It's a mindset shift. So it creates the technology in AI or any technology. It's a mindset shift, and then you get those employees to use it as an ally, not a threat. It's building trust. So you help your teams to build confidence and psychological safety because they feel there is an opportunity to actually play around in a safe environment so that they can get comfortable with any technology. And then support, ongoing enablement tools to encourage that positive behavior. And that's when you get successful transformations.
I appreciate you breaking it down to the three perspectives of mindset shift, building trust, as well as that ongoing support. In my experience in leadership, I find that the mindset shift part, which you said first, is oftentimes the most challenging one to transform. We oftentimes, especially in industry, there's a multitude of generations. We all do things completely differently. And we have our own ways of doing things that maybe even before we got into this organization work for us. What is your recommendation to not just leaders, but also teams and individuals that are listening in on how they can transform and shift their own mindset and be agile so that they can be the best that they can be organizationally?
Another good question. So you know that when you go through any type of technology or change, when it's told to you, it's harder to accept the change. You are lacking in you are almost kind of drugged to adopt whatever it is. But when it comes to the mindset shift, it's more about collaborating in the change, not telling the change. So if your stakeholders are a part of shaping the strategy, you're talking about their pain points and letting them know that they're heard, and you're showing the evidence in the work and the way that you're carrying out your strategy, as well as when you think about how they use their peers. Like, so if my coworker was comfortable enough to try it, I'm going to use that as a change champion and help me to better adapt. I'm going to feel more safe, that psychological safety. I'd rather go to my friend versus a higher up. And my recommendation to leadership, it is really about that building buy-in and showing that they're also part of the change. Because a lot of times companies are, the leadership is not as connected to those people that are going to actually have to adopt the change. And so they don't often have an awareness of the pain points. And middle management, from my perspective, is really the key to trickling that information up and down. So when leadership, it takes a person that is great at communicating, doesn't have a problem with voicing their opinion, and is an advocate for their teams, because leadership is often disconnected. Now, that doesn't always have to be the case. If they have a Coretta,
Coretta, I like that. I like how you just bridged that in.
If they have a Coretta, it's you're getting a leader that communicates well, knows how to get straight to the point to the executive level and manage their messaging, as well as take leadership on that journey. If you're not part of the journey, if you're not walking the walk and talking the talk, you really don't understand the pain points that were mentioned. So if I'm implementing AI, and I need my leaders to use, I'm trying to convince my stakeholders that are going to use the tool to, as an ally, as a strategist, I need to show proof that they're doing it in leadership. So AI is not going to take away your job. It's going to help you be a strategist. And I need for leadership to actually do that from the top to the bottom, because they can say it's not taking away your job. It is helping to enhance your job. It's not thinking for you. AI is only as smart as the person that's implementing the information. If you don't know how to ask the right questions, you're going to get a lot of fluff and a lot of those dashes and a lot of stuff that it looks like it's an AI. But if you are well educated in your field, leaders are well educated in their organization, they know the right questions to ask, and they can show support of the tool by showing how they use the tool as an ally.
Let me ask you this, Coretta, because there's somebody listening right now that doesn't necessarily have a growth mindset and is asking themselves or saying to themselves, AI is taking a lot of jobs. Don't we see our economy right now? But I believe that in what you just communicated, there's an opportunity of a skill set and there's a skill gap that exists that AI is replacing slowly. What is your message to those individuals that are listening in right now to be prepared and ready for the next generation of this technological wave that's happening?
What I've learned is that AI is the future, and it belongs to organizations who build confident teams, not just power systems. Yeah. So when you think about how intimidating it can be to individuals, they see right away, oh, it's going to take my job away. And I can say as a consultant, I also had that mindset because change management and OD sometimes has a repetitive cookie cutter process, but you can't take away that human element. It could probably help you enhance your job. It's an opportunity to grow in your industry or in your role. It's an opportunity to strategize and have that ally. So the growth mindset is really on how you use the tool and how you allow that tool to help you shine. Let's say, for instance, I go into organizations, and again, aviation, lifestyle, I don't know how the world I end up in there. And I'll be honest with you, 80% of the time, I don't even know the technology. I have no idea. It's all these specialized technologies, but I do know that AI can help me to understand that audience. It helps me to understand the mindset of my stakeholders. It allows me to walk a day-to-day and then implement that information and strategize about it based on what I know as a 15-year consultant. So I will go in and say, hey, I'm noticing these behaviors. I see these pain points. I am thinking that this strategy works. AI will help me to strategize. Well, this is the positive. This is the negative. I always say AI isn't right. I trump the AI decision, but it helps me to think differently. And that has helped me in the last 5 years. It helps me to grow as a consultant. I would have never thought about venturing out on my own and creating my own consulting firm if it wasn't for the way that I thought when it came to AI, as well as you encouraging me to do the same thing.
Look, I wasn't even going to say nothing. You know, one of the things that I love about you, Coretta, is that you don't just talk theory and philosophy. You actually have practical results, not just practical knowledge or techniques, like the actual results. And some of those results, for the people that are listening in, you led $130 million. That's with an M, $1 million modernization project for 44,000 staff members and over 300,000 students, and achieved over 90% adoption. Yes, I did my research. That is unheard of. That's unheard of in change management. That's unheard of in leadership as a whole. And I just wanted to give you your flowers. But for somebody that's trying to adopt and be able to create those types of results, what were some of the key factors that made that project and that level of buy-in possible?
Well, it made me think differently because it was during the pandemic. There was no plan. There was no playbook. And I was very good at technology adoption, but I had never experienced something like that. None of us did. So what it required me to do is really sit down and get into the minds of those stakeholders, because they were this school district was not equipped for a remote learning environment. And the pandemic pushed them to do it right away, like with no training, no, it was one day you're going home, you're learning on this technology, and we needed for 600 schools, and the deadline is as fast as you can get it to be done. So it required that I really sat down with local leadership and really see about, the funding and things like that, because that was the back end. And then think about what is happening when the student is sitting in the front of that computer and has never been in a classroom with the teacher virtually. And what is it that's intimidating that teacher that's not accustomed to a technology? Some of the teachers are tenured, and new technology can be a little intimidating. So I literally had to sit in focus group after focus group and instead of planning to plan, I didn't have that opportunity. I had to do an iterative approach. So I'm testing it out. If it doesn't work, I'm going to use those failures, and I'm going to help with the next stage. And I didn't have time to really plan. So it literally, when I tell you I was online developing a coalition, I called people in Australia, London, South Africa, because they were going through that change as well. And those educational systems were doing something different than we were doing. New York was doing something. They were experiencing something different that we had never experienced before. But when we gave our students real-time support, which is what the consensus was in that group, real-time support, giving them trust, building trust to say, hey, we're learning it. You can't fail because we haven't done it at all. So just you logging on isn't a failure. It's a win for us. But increasing that psychological safety really helped that initiative to shine the way it did. Now, when I say it was some bumps in the road, anything you saw on the news when it came to that school district and technology, that was my project. And I hated watching the news because the parents weren't happy with the technology that we selected. So we had to go back and think about, what's the easiest technology for them to adopt in such a rush situation. They didn't have a digital curriculum. So we were trying to create a digital curriculum on the fly. And they really were angry with the fact that they didn't get warning. Like, think about it. If you're a parent, and you're instantly your kid is home full time, for one, it's taking away that time that you had to yourself. But two, you're more support to your student in education than you were before. A lot relied on their teachers, and so when they came home, it was just kind of piggybacking on the assignment. But this required for parents to really get involved in the technology. And the only way that was going to happen, and unfortunately I had to do this in cases, I had to go to the homes of some people that were having difficulties. But that was a smart thing because I got testimonials. I was able to show, it's okay to try. And the list went on and on. So I just used those real life stories in order to really push the adoption. Now, getting local leadership to understand what we were doing, because they were top down, they didn't understand the benefits of the approach that I was taking. So I had to get the CIO on board and be like, hey, I need you to push this narrative because we need more money. This is what I'm hearing from my stakeholders. So trying to be able to be that middle person to get someone to sell the data that proves this is right, that's difficult too, but some way we figured it out.
Let me challenge you on this perspective, because I actually worked in the school system at the beginning of COVID, and I believe that we weren't ready. This exacerbated a major access and equity issue among students that either A, didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have access to technology. The school in my district that I was leading They were not a one-to-one school. So some students didn't even have technology. We did not have the resources to be able to build a digital curriculum. And once we did, it wasn't aligned with state standards. So there was a multitude of issues. And the problem that I have, even as you brought it up, that I'm now reflecting on, is that the ones that were negatively impacted the most were the children. It wasn't the parents. It was not the teachers. It was not the leaders. It was not the local officials. It was our children. And years later, they are still rebounding from the academic gap that existed because of the lack there of preparation. Mm-hmm. What I believe, though, and I'd love to bring this up here, is that was a leadership problem. And I believe, I guess the question that I have for you is, change fatigue real, or is it just a symptom of poor leadership? Because I believed in that time, leadership should have been looking 2-3 years ahead to prepare schools for where we were going and start working on those plans rather than just looking at the day-to-day. I'd love to hear your perspective.
I'll give you the consultant answer. It depends. And it really does. There wasn't a playbook, so I give them a little mercy because we were creating the playbook. But leadership should have been much more prepared for a situation like this. The kids did suffer, and they suffered in ways that we couldn't imagine, like the safety issues when they were on the technology and things like that. You know, they said that educational gap, it really did decline because kids stopped coming. And change fatigue is real, especially during the pandemic, because there were things being thrown at organizations to do quick fixes. And before they were able to adopt one, there was another one coming. And so there wasn't an opportunity to stagger the change. So they just kind of had to drink it out of a fire hydrant. Isn't that the right to say it? But they were forced to drink it out of a fire hydrant. The unfortunate thing about it, leaders were being pressed by their leaders to make things happen. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they were forcing things on their populations much sooner than they had to. I believe that things could have been staggered because when you think about, well, in this school district, the first 3 months of the remote learning didn't count, meaning that their grades, they weren't graded. Mm-hmm. And so there was more of an opportunity to build that trust and for leadership to make decisions more carefully. They could have created the playbook and also been on the ground making the plays that were in the playbook to make sure it was successful. I think they did too much at top, but we were all stressed. No one had experienced that. So I give them 10% mercy because they should be ready for changes thrown at them that way. So,
I love the perspective. I love the grace and mercy that you're giving. I just, for me, I have a different perspective because if the grace that we're giving leaders are at the expense of students, they don't get any grace from me. And one of the questions that I have for you, and I love how you're talking about the balance between culture and leadership across organizations, and your work across aviation and finance and these multitude of industries, even education. What are the cultural or leadership patterns that you've noticed that consistently, let's say, predict change will stick or change will stall?
There's no cohesiveness. The left doesn't know what the right. I mean, that it does it all the time. That's what organizational effectiveness is, making sure that everybody works together and things get done. But most of the time, they're not all working together. There's no cohesiveness in the departments. Like I've experienced times when I'm implementing a tool that the whole organization is going to get, but Department B had no idea it was coming. Department A was rocking and rolling. So it was a surprise. The cohesiveness makes a difference, and the messaging, making sure that you're specific to the audience. Like you can't, emails and that sort of thing. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And so making sure you're communicating the message clearly. So when you start to see resistance, I like to think of resistance as a playground. It's probably the best thing you can have when you're doing change, because that's where you find out all the nitty gritty of what the problems is when it comes to resistance. And when leadership doesn't have an understanding of the pain points, they don't really know how to make their teams cohesive. They don't know how, when department A has a problem, it trickles down to department B, and so on and so, and down to your ROI. So cohesiveness is the one thing, but resistance is the gold mine to find out where the real nitty gritty is. And that's where that's what you communicate to your leaders.
I want to step in really quickly. I'd love to know your perspective on this, because leadership, especially these days in any industry, are so focused on performance, and to the point where they're obsessed with performance, but not always with alignment. And I've always been the leader that focuses more on alignment, because I feel like if we're aligned and unified and cohesive in the way that you explained, then that leads to higher performance and higher metrics. How do you help leaders balance driving results with building that relationship currency as well?
When you show that the mindset shift is a direct impact to the bottom line. When behaviors change, performance change. And when performance changes, your customer service numbers increases. You are able to sell better. Your departments are more productive. That's what they understand, because at the end of the day, regardless of the change, they want to know, well, how is this going to affect us financially? In alignment, that's the way. The data doesn't lie. When you show organizations like the numbers are changing, we are having less call off, whatever that thing is, then it starts to resonate with them. Yeah. And from your perspective, I want to know what you did at that time when you were trying to get alignment with your school district, because I could only imagine how difficult it was, because you are a leader. And you're a little removed, but you're very involved. Like, you're a leader that's high, but very involved. How did you handle that?
I think you can't have alignment until you audit the nature of where you currently are, because my vision and what I believed was impact was completely different than the 3 directors on campus. And it was completely different than the board. So alignment cannot happen until the top board members got clear on what success looks like as an organization.
Yep.
And I mean, because the challenge that I see in education, and this is the harsh reality, and I know I'm going to get some slack for this, educational institutions are not for all students. Just because I build a charter school in a district just because all students can apply and enroll in that school, the model isn't designed for all students. There's a certain type of school for a certain type of student based upon what that family wants to achieve. So what I believe leaders have to do more effectively and efficiently is ask yourself, what does success look like at this organization? What are our values? What are our beliefs? And what are the shared practices that align with the values? Now we have to build out and bridge a new mission statement. And the problem that I have is that a lot of organizations, every organization has a mission statement. But if I walk into your nonprofit, your school, or your business, do I see your mission in action? Do I see how you hire people in your mission statement? Do I see how you let people go in your mission statement? Because a lot of organizations are very excited and up in arms when people come in their organization, but they're real shady when people are leaving their organization. Do I support the same way when you're coming in, the same way that you're going out? If I am building the next generation of future leaders, am I also focused on building the next generation of future employees? Am I focused on professional development and all of those things? And I think what happens is that we hire resume, we hire talent, we hire interview, but we don't hire alignment because we were never clear in the type of values, the type of beliefs, the type of practices that person embodies. And then when you bring all types of different people in with all types of different skills, visions, goals, dreams, that's when everything crumbles. So it requires for us as leaders to get really clear and unified on the front end, and then be able to create strong barriers and boundaries that don't allow the riffraff. And it doesn't matter how good you are. If you are a cancer or culture killer in our organization, then you have to go. And I think a lot of organizations hold on to people and to talent much too long after its expiration date. And that's the very thing that drives organizations to decline. So just in my experience, I see it as it starts from the top and then it all trickles down.
I'll add to that when you talked about mission and values. Whenever I am going in to create whatever adoption I need, my goal is to automatically tie it to the organization's mission and vision and values in order to gain buy-in. But if you go in an organization, I can't tell you how many times I've went into an organization and asked what their mission statement was. Nobody knew. And that's people that have been there for 20, 30 years. And it's hard for me to get buy-in based on that mission and value statement if they don't even know what it is. Sometimes the executive doesn't know, but when there is an alignment on the mission and value, there's evidence of failure is on the way.
I think the problem that I see though, Coretta, is that even in small businesses, I talk to businesses all the time, executive directors, and I ask them what their mission and their values are, and they have no idea. And it's like, how do you, as the leader, not know what your mission and values are, but you're trying to grow your organization or get donors to invest in you or hire people? Any leader that's listening right now, my advice is you have to get clear, you have to be confident, and you have to align your vision, your values with who you are. And it should be a part of how you move on a daily basis before you're given the capacity to be able to grow something further.
I'll give you a funny story about that. This is probably the funniest story I could tell. So I was in an organization and the task was to implement a change management office, to make recommendations on how it was implemented and all that other good stuff. They weren't familiar with change management. So it required that I talk to the C-suite and the board of directors to kind of align with it. And everything I did was in sync with the mission and vision. I want to say 5 out of 8 didn't even know what the mission and vision was. They had been there for 20 years. I remember one person saying, well, we don't align to that. That's our old mission. I'm like, wait, this is the new one. This is the new one that you created 15 minutes ago. Like they weren't aligned. And you'd be surprised at how many companies don't push that, regardless of the size, because it just doesn't seem important or add value to them. They're just doing their everyday job. But you're right. I think leadership should push that. And they could exemplify that mission and value in the interactions with their teams.
I was blown away. I was had the privilege of going to visit a school in Minnesota, and it's a private classical Christian school based in Minnesota. And we were going through the negotiation process if our company was going to work with them on some philanthropic giving strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And when I got there, we were talking, they were giving me a little tour around the building. But before our meeting with their whole leadership team began, it completely caught me off guard because they said, before we start, we're going to pray. And I was looking around and everybody bowed their heads, closed their eyes, and they gave a prayer. And I'm not talking about one of them just, regular, thanks God, we want to meet. It was one of them backroots Baptist prayers. And I was so caught off guard. And I wrote this in a chapter of my book because that is seeing the mission in action. Before we talk business, before we talk metrics, before we talk growth, we're going to be so aligned in what we do. And I told them later on, that was the reason that I said yes to working with you all as a school. That showed leadership. So I asked anybody on here, if I was to come to your organization today, in your school, in your building, in your nonprofit, what will I see? What will I feel? And does it actually align with the mission that you're communicating? Let me ask you something, Coretta. If you had to leave every single listener, every single leader with one sentence to remember about culture and change, what would it be?
Just one? That's all I get? I would say culture and change is more about collaboration than it is about force. As long as you can collaborate and keep everyone involved in the change that you're making, you'll get the buy-in, you'll get the support, and you'll get the adoption.
And when you think about adoption, if you could completely redesign how organizations approach leadership and leadership development from the ground up, what would be the first principle? What would be your step by step?
You throwing them at me, huh? That's a good question because I've seen a lot across the board. The consensus is they're not visible. And being visible makes a big difference. And the way your visibility shows makes a huge difference. That's just good. From leaders walking through the office every day and, admiring their employees, saying that they're doing a good job, that increases adoption. But if they feel like they're not touchable, they're not reachable, that creates fear. So you want to create an environment where leadership is accessible, leadership is available, and there's an open door policy because you don't want them to feel like we're doing this on our own and we're just dictating. So that was a long answer for that one sentence, but that's what I've seen.
What do you think one of the most overrated concepts in change management is?
Pro-sci.
Woo! Talk about it. She had that one ready. Talk about it. I'm interested.
Oh my goodness. It's the new shiny tool. It's the methodology. ADKAR is a methodology. It's the new fancy thing. They all equal the same. So it requires it gives when they rely on pro-sci, you're getting cookie cutter solutions. You're not getting innovative solutions because of the framework. But if you know change management, you know that change starts before that whole awareness piece of it in that pro-sci methodology. You can't just take a methodology and make it fit for everyone. If I went to that Christian school, pro-sci wouldn't even be on the table. I would be looking for something that matches their values, and they all are the same. So it takes you to be innovative in your thought, be experiencing what you've seen across boards. It doesn't pro-sci. If I could put an X on it, it would be what it is because
we just did. We just put an X on it. It's done.
And I'm not even certified in it. I didn't even care about it because they're all the same. They're all the same, but pro-sci pushes there's more. And I'm not paying $5,000 to get accredited in something that I don't feel you just don't do cookie cutter solutions. It just doesn't work.
Towards the beginning of the episode, we talked a lot about transformation. And in both of our experiences, transformation is a habit. What does that look like, though, on a practical behavioral level? And what should leaders be doing on a daily or a weekly basis to make that a part of their DNA and to make that real?
If transformation is forced, it looks like autopilot. If transformation is collaborated, you see the mindset shift.
Good.
I just don't, that whole, this is the way we've always done it, that sort of thing. Yeah. And leadership sometimes doesn't even believe in the shift. And so you see people resisting the change, not willing to adopt different things that have been processes, technology, whatever it is. But when you are in it to really transform the behaviors, not just the systems, the behaviors of your organization, the mindsets, the building trust and creating safety. It makes a big difference. People want to be excited about whatever you are pushing in your organization. They want to be a part of the winning team. They want to be early adopters. Don't transform with a cookie cutter solution. Make one distinctive to the organization, as Signature Impact Partners does.
That's literally a perfect segue. I feel like that was like the perfect timing. Because I was going to ask, like, how are you all as an organization and in your role as a consultant, how are you all doing things differently? And my leaders that are listening in, whether they're listening into the live recording or the replay, what could they learn or gain from your organization coming in and working with them?
Excellent question. And the one thing that is true, we provide distinctive solutions for enduring transformations. We don't only come in to make the transformation, we teach you how to be able to implement that process within within your organization. Because the one thing that's true is change is inevitable. But we teach you what worked. We give you the analysis based on your stakeholders and your organization. We show you based on data what would be effective. We give you a unique strategy and approach. And not only that, we go on the ground and run that playbook with you hand in hand so you can see how it's done. And you don't need us anymore. Like, the goal of success isn't that you have to keep calling Coretta to do the same thing that she's done over and over again. That means Coretta ain't successful in what she's done. But what success looks like is if I can do my job, create the transformation that organization needs, change the behaviors and the mindset, that's success for me, because it shows. It shows in the dollars. It shows in the ROI. It shows. I don't want to, success isn't me coming in over and over again. As I said, it's distinctive solutions, meaning customized for you for enduring change, for enduring transformations, meaning change that sticks.
What do you say if I said the statement, leadership is dying in the industry?
What would I say? I would like to say that isn't true, because those are my that's my audience, but I can't disagree with you there, because the definition of leadership has changed tremendously with the new technologies.
Tell me more.
We are getting, like you said, we are getting resumes. We're not getting talent. We're not hiring talent. We're hiring people that can fool you based on that ChatGPT that they did. And so when they go and show up in those positions and they're held accountable for being in the C-suite, being a director, the knowledge isn't there. So you don't have the same disciplines from experience that they've seen. Like, there's nothing more important than experience in what you're doing. I could never be a leader at 1 year of experience based on a leader being 15 years experience. Exactly. It's just completely different. And I would be a different leader in both situations. But leadership is dying, because the experience, the mindset shift is not going in the right direction, relying on tools as the answer and not the support, and not an ally. I think, and you know, that whole I don't want to go through the stages. I want it right away. Exactly. It doesn't create a good leader. There's no way to go around that. The hard work, the personality, the passion for the organization's mission, that makes a good leader. Not a ChatGPT that told you a framework to follow.
Now, Coretta, when you're working with organizations, what would be a framework that you would use to be able to assess, grow, and be able to enhance the various things that they're doing?
Here's another shameless plug. So at Signature Impact Partners, we have a framework called Signature Edge. And what Signature Edge does is it evaluates our organization prior to us going in and making a solution. So your stakeholders, your organization tells us what works. And again, our philosophy is mindset shift, trust, and support. We have different ways of shifting the mindset based on psychological data and experience through, things that we found out over experience and through the industry. Trust. We have been very good at building that psychological safety piece of it. And so that means we create labs for the company to test out whatever situation, whatever technology they're trying to adopt. We create safe spaces when talking about the different technology, and then we support it. And we support it in a lot of different ways because there's not one way to do it. But one thing we don't do is we don't go in an organization with a solution already in mind. Not even if we've seen it before, because every organization is different. So Signature Edge literally does give you a stamp of a signature of our organization and the edge above the rest. How's that commercial?
Yeah, I like that. That was good. That was good. I was like, yeah, I did that. That's
you
good.
did that. You did that.
That was good. Coretta, this has been phenomenal. And, it's truly beautiful being able to have this conversation, being able to hear your insights, hear your heart for leadership. And anybody in my network that is tapped into this, hire Coretta, hire Signature Impact Partners, because they're doing absolutely exceptional work in this field. And it's one of those things that is dying, is leadership. And when we look at our organizations, when we look at where they're going, we need people that are integral, that are value-based, that are strong communicators, that are empathetic, that are compassionate, that are experts in this work. And that's Coretta Dixon. So thank you so much for talking about change. Thank you so much for showing what it looks like when culture becomes not just a word, but a living system, not just a slogan, but an actual process that we can follow that allows our teams to be more performative or more productive. For everybody listening, take this episode as a reminder that transformation isn't a campaign, it's a commitment. And if you value it, if you nurture it, and if you build it, you give others the opportunity to thrive as well. Coretta, where can people find you and what's next for you?
Well, you can send me an email at Coretta Dixon, Signature Impact Partners, that's a lot.com, or my LinkedIn, Coretta Dixon. I'm always responding. I welcome your requests, and I even get excitement about helping you brainstorm ideas for your organization. And one thing before we leave, Kyle, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit on your platform and have this conversation. And I also thank you for your support and believing in me and wanting to see me win.
You know it. Send me an invoice. Everybody, again, this is the Contagious Culture Podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, share this episode, tag us, like, subscribe to the episode, and keep the conversation going. One of the questions that we ask every single episode is, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you all next episode.
Awesome sauce.